General items, South Yuba City annexation election, presented by Steve Krager, our city manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. But there's been a lot of time and effort that's been put into this matter. I'll provide a synopsis. If you'd like to go into any level of detail, just let me know. Before you on the screen is the subject area referred to as the South Yuba City annexation. This was initiated in April of 2016 by your city council. It involves roughly 1,400 developed and undeveloped parcels and about 625 acres. So where has it gone since April of 2016? It's found its way all the way to May of 2017, at which time the Local Agency Formation Commission, which is the local commission that oversees reorganizations of territory, changes in boundaries, and on that group, we have representation. Vice Mayor Didball sits on that. And pardon me if I'm forgetting another council member. You know, we have one. The county has 2 individuals. The city has 1. Thank you. And so we have a direction to conduct an election within a 1-year time period. And that would take us out to May 2018. Notably, that would be the end of the period, meaning an election would have to occur prior to that time and afford adequate time for LAFCO to continue to close the proceedings by May of 2018. So where does that put the city? The recommendation before you this evening is to proceed with an election for the November 7th timeframe. That is the possibility. Why that time frame? There is consideration of using our county clerk due to the independence and really perceived and real objectivity of that role that we all have as the electorate. And so that would take us to the November 7th timeframe. Now, notably, this could occur at a different time. It could occur December, it could occur January, it could occur February. We believe at the staff level, though, if the council really would like to go to the election route, and we'll talk about alternatives in a moment, but if this is the route, this would be the preferred time frame because we are all accustomed to participating in our elections in the November timeframe, and therefore it would afford the optimal number of people to turn out to vote on the matter. So it would be a mail ballot. If that election failed, 1 year would need to pass before a new application could be submitted. If there was a decision to withdraw the application, then resubmittal can be take place at any time. So what's really important to discuss tonight? It's really important to discuss alternatives. The first 2 alternatives have already really been addressed. The fact that you can call a special election at a time other than the November timeframe. The other is something that has been discussed off and on, and let me give context to this. First, I'll state it. Consideration requesting legislation to provide property owner election. Somewhat counterintuitively, the state law provides for this election that I've referenced to be among the voters, which seems to be the democratic way. That said, if my wife and I are renters in a property of the mayor's, and the mayor is saying, well, I'm for this because I see this as a benefit to my property to have it annexed, and my wife and I are renting and we're both voters, and you live outside of the area, you can't vote on this issue, but my wife and I can, and we vote against it. And so we vote counter to what the property owner feels it is in his or her best interest. It just really, it tends to be confusing. I've discussed it with the city attorney. This is the state law. This is what it says. So there is an alternative, and I think your council deserves the opportunity to discuss this because some of these ideas have been raised among you. So this is not necessarily an original idea of staff's, but it's the idea of should there be a request for some type of legislation to be passed so that it affords the true property owner in the area the opportunity to elect to annex into the city. So with that, as I mentioned, I'd be happy to provide any additional detail that you'd like. But I ask that you discuss the matter and then provide staff with the direction that you so prefer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion from council on what has been presented?
To the mayor.
Please.
I'll start the conversation because I'm one of those that believes, after talking to property owners in that area, that they are entitled to a vote. They hold the financial interest in that area, and they feel, in one case, one of the families holds 10 properties down there that they don't know, and nor can they, other than going out and talking with their residents that are their tenants. They can't influence the direction. So they're concerned that they would like their properties to come into the city and have full services. Those services being police would be the addition, and then any other benefits that would come along with assessment districts and things like that should sewer fail, and predominantly in the area in which the one or the family owns 10 rentals. They're concerned with the failure of their septic systems in there. So with that said, just in talking with those individuals, there has to be a better way to go about this than simply allowing the registered voter, which will now, as we saw the election results, let's just take those numbers. Only if we had a high voter turnout, 72% would turn out. It's a mail-in process, but again, the simple process of returning those can be pretty cumbersome on certain individuals. And I think the motivation is that we're going to be up against is the motivation of those that are opposed to the annexation at this point, for various reasons, not wanting to comply with code sections that the city may have and impose so properties don't look like a parking lot, multiple vehicles parked on lawns, and those type of things that the city takes great pride in making sure that that those type of code violations aren't present everywhere. They want maintenance of landscape areas within the county area that are poorly maintained now. And so, I look at all these things and individuals, the property owners, believe that by coming into the city, many of them that I've talked to believe that their property values will increase as a result of being included into the city. Therefore, they'd like a voice in this.
Through the mayor?
Councilman Cardoza?
Yep, through the mayor. Steve, have we started any process about legislation doing this for us or getting this going or anything?
No, this is the first it would take your council's direction to move in that. I guess to clarify too, we haven't inquired.
Okay.
We have not reached out to the senator's or assemblyman's office.
And if we do this, you have any idea how long this is going to be? The way is it going
Well,
to be
it would be obviously not this year. It would be something
We'd
that
have
would
to
need to come
withdraw.
into next year, which would be somewhere in the next year and a half to time frame, optimistically.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, that means we'd have to withdraw the application and be ready find out what the result of the legislation would be.
Well, the
And then
important thing, the good news, we brought this forward with adequate time frame. Now, not for the November 7th election, right? If you really want to go down that path, I encourage you to step in that direction tonight. If not, and you want more time to consider it, you'd still have time to go forward with an election within the required time frame, or take the alternative path to look at the special legislation. I always believe staff needs to make a recommendation, and so that's we did. I don't want to just leave
Is
with a
there
quagmire, although this is close. It's not an easy path.
My question, have there been other legislation where this has been done in the past for our community, or is this something new? I don't know.
And that's something we'd absolutely look into and evaluate.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I get a little excited on this. The system isn't right now. A legislative attempt at this would right the property owners' rights in these cases, and I wouldn't ask for legislation. I wouldn't ask Gallagher's office or Nielsen's office for special consideration for our area only. I would be looking for a change to the state law as it applies to these annexations.
Well, I figured that out.
Yeah.
I
So
knew where you were going.
so I don't see this as a huge battle, because when you disenfranchise property owners, those are the individuals that are paying the bills for the state or to the state of California and local jurisdictions. They are entitled to be heard. They're entitled to be able to make decisions on their property, not have another individual that's not a financial stakeholder make those decisions. So I would highly encourage that we continue down the path, but that path be considering trying to forward an attempt at legislation.
I know that there's, and I'm not saying no to it, I just know that there have been those battles between landowners and renters based upon who has the rights based upon squatters' rights type of a thing, even though they are being living there. So there is a risk that I know of because of other landmark decisions that have been made in the past, mostly in big cities, not in rural areas, but there have been. Anybody else want to discuss consideration of taking the number 3 path? Which means we would end up probably withdrawing this current application, correct?
If your council was interested in looking at the number 3 path, my recommendation would be that you not withdraw at this time. And you still
Keep it
have,
open.
frankly, you have by next May
till
to
the end
hold
of
the
May.
election, so it keeps that additional path open to you.
Okay. Yeah, in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, you could still seize the second special election. My interest, though, is if for some reason your council tonight said, no, we really want to go forward with election, no matter what, absent item 3, then strike while the iron's hot. Do it now. If you want to consider the third, then we leave that option open for the time being, and then we would start looking into this alternative. And we're obviously happy to do so.
I'm gonna support the number 3 alternative and at least go the direction of finding out what can or cannot be done based upon, the legislators and see what they have to say. Because we'll get it, we'll find out from them the probability of something even being considered. So I'm looking for action to.
Is that a motion?
Yes, I'll call it a motion.
I'll second
call
it.
it a motion. Okay. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, one voting against. 4-1 pass.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council. I think it was Councilman Cardozo was
Yes.
the nay? Yes. All right.